In a post-truth reality, who will save the world, uncover the mysteries of the universe and build a vast multimedia empire to rival the likes of Genghis Khan? Join these two Aussie meat robots as they thrash out the weird and wonderful, the classified and supernatural, as well as their own inconceivable adventures on the podcast you had to have and never thought you needed. It's time for Hidden in Plain Sight.
All right, we are back again, and we're going to head into part 3. So Sean has now joined me in Prague.
Yeah.
And Sean will share some experiences.
Yeah, well, look, I turned up late 2000 and had an incredible time. I think I was there for like 3 months, and we did some crazy stuff together. Thorough indoctrination into the world of Prague and all things mystical. It's funny that we've been talking about like mystical stuff for a really long time.
Yeah.
Fascinated with that kind of stuff. Even before I turned up in Prague, we were talking about
Well,
it.
you longer than me. You longer than me. My initiation to all of this was the first story I shared of what happened to me in the cemetery. I mean, before that, I'd never really thought or considered any of this stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess my family sort of were well and truly involved in all that. And, as we saw, my mum, my sisters, have had quite profound experiences with what you might call the sixth sense or the other side. And so I'd certainly grown up around all these things. And, turning up into that little flat that we had in Zhizkov, us two living together for 3 months, that first 3 months was like a full kind of like deep dive into the world of the bizarre. I think we recorded a 10-song album at the same time. We evacuated it. We snuck out of the flat because we ran out of money. Couldn't pay the rent anymore.
Run away.
We were homeless for a while. And then I went back to Australia and I made a TV movie. You came back. I did, and that was already on the cards before I left. And then the kind of question was, well, do you go back? Like, do you go another time? Because the first 3 months was kind of like dipping my toe into the water and going, all right, I like it here, but it's pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. And it's very different from what I was used to. And I said, yeah. I went, all right, let's do it. Let's go for part 2.
Let's go back.
And this is when you'd found a new flat for us. I was actually sleeping upstairs in this place in a Prologue. Believe it or not, the first
flat. Let's call it an office.
It was an office, yes. It was an office converted into a flat for us. Not really a kitchen or a bathroom. Yeah, it was a humble abode. It was Dr. Benesheva. Very good Dr.
Great
Benesheva.
Location, though. Great location.
She'd sorted us out right in the center of Prague on a Prologue. And believe it or not, if you watch The Bourne Identity, which was shot in Prague when we were there, Matt Damon literally walks past the building we were living in, and it's in. Makes it into the film. Yeah, he walks down a Prologue. So, but it's also really funny because he jumps from one building on one side of Prague and then lands on the other side
somewhere. Yeah,
like
isn't it funny? When you watch movies, it's the same. Like there's a bunch of movies shot here, like Mission Impossible, a bunch of them. And when you know a city and you see them literally walk out one door and into another, you're like, that's like 16 kilometers away. What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, look, we didn't get to see Matt Damon there, but he did walk past that place, and that place in the Prologue was, I guess, where I want to share the first big story, or first moment of like really bizarre, like a bizarre event that happened to me. And I guess I should preface this by saying that I've never experienced anything like it. It's very similar to the experience that you had in the cemetery, but it's quite different at the same time. I was alone, and there was no one else there with me at the time. But over the years, I've recognized that I've had other moments that are similar to this, and some that happened beforehand, of quite a profound realization that you would go, wow, I am in a different reality, a different world altogether. And it wasn't stimulated by hallucinogenic substances. It's just like your perception of the world just shifts in a way, just all of a sudden. And I I think probably just to give it a bit of a reference point is this book here. It's The Art of Peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's written by.
Do you have any normal size books?
No, I only got really
the massive
big ones,
red book or the
really,
tiny yellow
really,
book,
really small ones. And this particular guy who wrote it and developed the martial art form of Aikido, he talks about this having this profound realization, and it changed his life. It completely changed him. He was a Japanese soldier, like a swordsman, and fought in wars and like was carried away in that kind of lifestyle, and then had this moment, this really big moment of light and a lightness and a change inside of him that came out of nowhere, and it completely transformed his life. He went from being a warrior into basically someone that taught a peaceful method of practice, of daily practice. The Art of Peace. It's a beautiful book of like quite profound proverbs on the meditations on peace, and I think that's best how I can describe the experience that happened to me. Was that something happened, and so I was in a Platilovar. I came home from being out in the town, and it was daytime. It was the afternoon. It was still sort of like autumn or maybe spring. I don't know. It wasn't summer. It wasn't cold like winter. But I came back, and we had a flatmate, a guy called by the name of Chris Santana. He was living with us for a little while there, and he was in between places. A very colourful character, kind of like a Lou Reed. He was quite a lot older than, he was like our age now, but living with us at the time. And he and I had a chat for a bit. We sparked up a doobie and and that was pretty much standard. And then I went upstairs to start practicing saxophone. So I used to play sax for a long time, and I don't play it anymore. But I sat on the edge of my bed, and like the ceilings were really low in this place, and there was a bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and I was sitting there just playing the sax and playing these really high harmonics just over and over and over again. And I think I got into this almost like this loop of playing these particular notes over and over and over again. And it was bizarre because it was like I was looking at the light bulb playing this music, and it was like at a certain point, it was like the light bulb just fractured. But not in reality, it fractured in my own kind of perception of it. And it was like all the light inside of the light bulb just went very white and very bright. And it kind of hit me. And it was like similar experiences I've had of changing of perception, but very, very powerful feeling of perception that had shifted. And I had a profound feeling of joy. And like a download of like a lot of knowledge. Like suddenly it's like I could see into the future, see into the past. I could look at objects, and the objects were not only like physical, but they had kind of a quality to them, a history to them that I could tell from, I don't know, like a door would not only just be a door, but it would have a past, a present, and a future. And it was quite a profound moment. And then I became filled with the knowledge that there were a lot of people in the room with me. And the best way I can describe it, it was like all of my ancestors, all the people that had come before me were there with me, in the room with me. And it was like they were celebrating the fact that I had stepped through the door and stepped through into this newfound perception. And I was overwhelmed. I was totally overwhelmed with emotion. Like I felt great sense of gratitude, a great sense of emotion. I wept, and I was just so profoundly moved by this experience. And then it dawned on me. It was just like, well, does this mean that this is it? Is this the end? Am I about to die right now? Am I crossing over into the other side? That's how I felt. And I started becoming very, very afraid, because I was like, holy shit, maybe this is it. Maybe I've already died, or I'm about to die. And I had to change the energy. So I was just like, I don't want to die right now. So I've got to leave this place. And I had some quite specific visions and specific places that I visited in that particular moment. I went to this island. I was on this island. I went into a tower. I went deep inside the tower. I went to the top of the tower and I read this book. And there were some words that the only words that I can remember was like, and this is going to sound bizarre, but Peabody, the word Peabody came out to me. I don't know why, but it was like really important information that I needed to keep. And unfortunately, I don't have a memory of what it was after this event. And so like after all this stuff had happened, my ancestors had visited me. I felt like I was going to die. I just went, right, I've got to get out of here. I've got to go. And so I went into the city, and this is when it got really strange, is because by the time this was playing out of several hours, by the time I left my flat, it had gone from the afternoon into night, and it was nighttime in Prague, and I was walking down the main town square, and there's people everywhere, except what my perception was is that I could read people's minds. I could see which way they were going to move before they could move. I could just, I just stepped through this place with such ease. I just swiftly moved through this place, and I became quite interested in some small trees in the middle of Main Town Square, and I just stood there in front of these trees for, I don't know, it must have been half an hour, and this is probably the bizarrest experience, but I could communicate with the trees, and I could hear their voices and what they were saying. And there was like a really low, deep rumbling from under the ground of how they were communicating to me. And I was like, whoa, this is pretty bizarre. And so I headed down Main Town, and this person, there were a lot of people obviously on the street, always giving flyers to you. But this particular person stepped in front of me and said to me, "Here, you have to go here." And I was just like, "Whoa, I've got to go here. I've got to go to this club. I must go to this club." So I followed the map to this particular place, and I stepped into this dance club. And it was obviously not too late in the evening. It was completely empty. There was no one there. And it was just like this empty dance floor, and this music came on, and I just started dancing, and I danced and danced, and it was very free kind of like experience. It was just completely on my own dancing, having this great time. And then I left, and I was walking through the street, and going back to your previous episode about the vampires.
Yes.
Then I was walking through where the markets are. I don't know where that's kind of near Old Town Square.
It's between the New Town and Old Town.
Yeah.
So as you take the main, you walk from the famous Orloy clock. Yeah. There's a little street that leads you then up towards the main town, and you walk. As you get halfway there, you walk through these markets that spread out either side.
Yeah. So the markets were all closed. Obviously, the stalls were still there, but none of the products and none of the people. It was completely empty. It was pitch black. And there was this dude walking from the other side of the street, and I was on one end of the street, and there he was. No. He was walking behind me, and I remember he was speaking in French and flipping a coin. And the guy was dressed. The guy was dressed in like a frock coat, like it was like out of Interview with a Vampire. Totally, just outpaced me, and then walked further forward. And I got this really strange vibe from him, and I was like, who is this guy? Like, who is he? And then he stopped in front of me and then turned around and was just like standing there flicking the coin. And I was like, well, this is a battle.
This is interesting.
This is a battle between me and this, what I perceive to be a vampire. I was just like, all right, well, better heed Josh's advice. Now, he wasn't horrifically looking like your rat vampire. He looked like a normal person, but I just decided to use the force of energy that I had with me that night, and I just went, and like I imagined I was shining this light out of me, and he just hightailed it out of there. Like he just buzzed off, and I went, all right, well, obviously that worked. Cleared out the vampire, yes, and I went home and then to sleep, and then the next day I woke up, and I woke up in the afternoon, and I didn't go to bed late, but I woke up like I had just been like totally drained, totally out of it. And I felt the next day I caught up with a friend of mine, and she and I went to Malestrana together, and I told her about it, and we just sort of ran through the fields of Malestrana together like crazy people. But there was a really strong sense that I'd been completely emptied by this experience. And I'd like to say that I was like this guy, and that I figured out the path of peace. But I actually think
at that moment.
Well, no, I think I turned a path, and I was given some really big opportunities, and I think this is where the sickness in me started to really come to the fore.
I think that's part of the learning. Like, a couple of things strike me on a few levels there. So you talked about playing some high harmonics on a sax.
Yeah.
First thing that came to mind was the place in Opladalova was very creative. So at the time, we had a couple of bands or doing a couple of musical things, and in a very short space of time, we produced a lot of work in that place.
Yep.
Lots. With nothing more than acoustic guitar, sax, and voice, and then we'd start jamming with a few guys. But we wrote lots and lots of songs, which became a band called Astro Metro. Also, I feel that as musicians, we went through a level shift or a change in that place, which was a definite maturity. But mainly, on the back of that, that whole area is quite buzzing. Like, that's as we start to come, we've talked about the Vinohradska Hill and being part of the original Magic Vision of Prague, and actually my own perception is that's where most of the energy in Prague is. It's centered around this one particular hill. Where we were living was just as that hill is coming down to the water.
Yep.
So if we were to picture over the centuries, the location of that, what would have been going on around that place over the centuries? You're talking about a lot of activity, a very central hub, because imagine this is off the old town square, where it was kind of a lot of the rich folks and all of that. And before you went up into the hills and the fields, so you could probably think it was very working class neighborhood for a period of time. And a lot of stuff would have gone on. But so aside from that, if you're sitting experimenting with some of these high harmonics and you're in a place that's already buzzing or vibing, and then you set into a particular mindset, a few theories jump to mind. There's something that we know about called DMT, which is a substance that's produced upon dying, and a substance that they can synthesize or harvest as well, and it gives you quite profound experiences that a lot of people say are life-changing. So we actually have substances, as science would tell us, in our own body that we don't have to ingest, that we're able to actually produce in moments. And it's funny you said I felt like I was dying. At the moment you said that, I was like, wow, this sounds like heavily like a DMT experience in some ways. That something's clicked inside the body. Because I guess what we've been aiming towards in a lot of our episodes is we're not just telling stories to say this is what happened, be freaked out or believe in it and have a life-changing moment. That's all beautiful. But we're actually sussing out and asking these questions like, did this happen? So another important point, it happened when you were alone. So this was a personal experience. And this is oftentimes when people might say, oh, he was tripping. Oh, no, he was just imagined it, because there was no one else there to corroborate it. But I think a lot of these experiences we have are singular. They are very personal. And I don't think everyone in Prague had the same experience the moment you had. But I hear your thing and I go, wow, it makes a lot of sense if we tie together a lot of different things from over the years of different philosophies, religions, beliefs that are heavily centered around frequency and rhythm and right place, right time.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, you could describe it as an hallucinogenic experience, but I've had hallucinogens and it wasn't the same. And the interesting thing about this is, like, I'd also had other moments like this before, totally clean and sober, but just not to this profound effect, not as earth-shatteringly long and as earth-shatteringly like deep. Just moments or glimpses of it, and it's like you can it's like shifting the doors of perception. You're like, or changing your understanding of what perception is. Probably the best way to describe it for me is always like if we're on a scale or a ladder and you're looking through the rungs of the ladder and that's your reality. It's kind of like you're just moving into a different kind of rung of the ladder and looking at it from a different angle. And suddenly it's just like, it's like leveling up in some way. It's kind of like downloading a new type of consciousness. And I think that's the whole point in, I believe in a lot of like principles like yoga or kundalini, or they call the bone down the bottom of it the sacrum, because it's a sacred vessel for transcendence that happens through as we talked about in the last episode, with CSF, cerebrospinal fluid moving through the body to the brain to release DMT, which naturally occurs in the body. So yeah, I possibly that could be it, but it is a life-changing moment, and I kind of wish that it changed my life in a way that I went, like, just kept rocketing up.
Well,
from
that's
that
what I was
place,
going to say.
But it
something
wasn't that
interesting
point.
you said was, I mean, and this is something that I would equate to as well, and something we're not too sure about the author of that book. Well, we're sure enough, but on the other side, there's always this area. It's like, to put a metaphor on it, all of a sudden there's a guy got you, and he's got a hit single.
Yeah.
And everyone says, wow, he came from nowhere.
Yeah, right.
But reality is that song's 15 years old, and he's been working on that forever, and he's been told no a million times and blah, blah, blah. And the metaphor for me is, I had a very profound experience, which I realized changed my life, but it didn't change everything from that moment.
No.
It's actually, in hindsight, I can see a lot of changes and development and a similar experience. So you have this very profound experience where, funnily enough, you mentioned talking to trees. There's a bunch of scientific studies now, and some being led in Japan, about the phenomena of the communication between plants. So there's actually in-depth study going on that says that certain plants make noises.
Yeah.
And actually, there's some even male and female plant that need to be seeded or whatever else that make certain noises, and they do this stuff.
Yep.
And your parents having an orchid nursery, I'm pretty sure at some point they were playing Mozart to the orchids, or Beethoven or something.
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up surrounded by, and still am surrounded by nature. It's plants and trees are part of my life. And The Secret Life of Trees is an excellent book for anyone that's interested in seeing the communication behavior between trees. And they interestingly use mycelium as a pathway to communicate. So under the ground, they connect to each other through mycelium.
I was going to say, how ironic, a book called The Secret Lives of Trees that's made out of trees. It's like dead trees.
Yeah.
Chopped up and pressed into it.
Well, but that's the life cycle of a tree in some ways. They get pulped and turned into wood and a whole bunch of stuff. But
this historical account of humans that's written on real human skin.
Yeah. It's great, and it's really interesting. But I absolutely believe that they communicate. But I heard their voices that day, and it was bizarre.
Look, going back, we touched on shamans in the earlier episodes. So one of the things that Don Juan goes through in the first book, because Carlos's main motivation is psychotropic drugs. He wants to know about peyote. So he's an anthropologist, and he's all about the drugs, whereas Don Juan very quickly and intuitively changes the whole scenario to get away from that. But first he takes Carlos through some of these ceremonies. And one of the things that he discusses is every plant is a being like anything else. And if you do not respect the plant, it can be your ally or your enemy. And before you harvest anything, you must have a discussion with it, and you must have a discussion with the universe, and it must be explained what your ritual is and what your movement is.
Right.
And some of us may think that's ridiculous. Who are these old fools sitting in deserts talking bloody nonsense? But on the other side, you go, wow, even if it is an empty ritual to do that, if it is, what a lovely way to change the way that you interact with the world around you, to give thanks.
Yeah.
And to, I grew up as you did in kind of Christian circles.
Yes.
which meant a lot of times people would say grace before eating and
Yep.
thank you for the food at the table. Man, I spent a lot of time at a lot of different dinner tables, and I never really felt that it was anything other than we should probably do this or we're
Yeah.
supposed to do this.
Yeah.
It never felt like actual ritual of giving thanks to anything.
Yeah. I think it's in Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath where he talks about like people having a relationship with the land. You know, talk about the Okies coming from Oklahoma, and there's the Dust Bowl and depression, and when you grow something and you raise like food from the ground and you
Different
cultivate it, and then that's all you have, then you do give thanks for that. Like you have to give thanks to the earth or to the spirits or to God or whatever it might be. And so I think for a lot of us, we are disconnected from the ritual, like the basic rituals, because we don't have connection to the world around us in a way anymore. We've separated ourselves in so many ways, and it's really sad, bro.
We almost think it's a right. Like the fact we go to work and we make this thing called money and then we exchange money, it's our God-given right to have whatever we can afford. You know what I mean? Like it's that, and even in a lot of cases, what we can't afford, we go borrow stuff and get that stuff, and we lose the connection for that having come from anywhere remotely natural.
I mean, this not to go off topic, but this is exactly on topic. Is like, how many people do you think would become vegans or vegetarians if they walked into a slaughterhouse and saw how animals are killed, or like, could they do it themselves?
As a kid, I did one of my first jobs when I moved out of home was Woolworths. I'd worked in Woolworths supermarkets. And I had a funny thing happen in Bondi where I'd moved to Sydney for the first time. I was probably 16, 16 and a half. I was moving in with a couple of mates of ours. We were doing the big trek to Sydney. And I thought, I'll go to Woolworths Bondi, try get a job. Anyway, I heard a security call come over the thing, and I recognized someone stealing something. So I went in and I helped, there's a couple of junkies stealing some pills. So I helped out, and I was just like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm looking for a job. You're hired. What do you want to do? I said, all right, great. So they offered me this idea of doing the management training course. And as part of the management training course, you had to go to each section of Woolworths. You had to be in the butcher section for a period of time, and you had to go to the abattoir. And I was speaking. I never did it. I stayed that first time I lived in Sydney. I was there for probably 2 months before I bailed back to the mountains. But my manager told me that, like, surprisingly, like there'll be 15, 20 candidates of the management training that will go to the abattoir. And of that 15 or 20, every time 80% of those people become vegetarian for at least 2 months. And he's like, without fail.
After going to the abattoir.
After going to the abattoir. He said without fail. Like it's like literally there'll be 18 out of 20 or 15 out of 20 that literally walk out of there going, I'm never eating meat again. And most of them last 1 to 2 months. But that's a funny idea.
Well, look, and going to the idea of rituals again, there's a really famous Czech story about them killing a pig. It's a Rubble story, I think, and I can't remember the name of the story, but it's a fantastic story. But I'll put it up here right now. But there's a moment in both the book and they made it into a film where basically they get together, slaughter a pig, and use every part of the animal to eat. But it's like a celebration. It's a rite. It's a ritual. It's a passage.
Still happens,
and it still happens now. You know, like, and I think, not to say that that's the only type of ritual that you can have, but I feel like a lot of us are very disconnected from the world around us.
So I mean, big part of it. But what you're talking about, your experience,
yes,
and touching for the last moment on the psychotropic stuff in the Don Juan story, is that the underlying thing being under things like whatever it be, weed or any of these substances that alter our perception to any degree, is they have a certain spirit. So they're classed as portals. They're not classed as a being. They're a portal. And what you're accessing by connecting, again, this could be old freaks. And I know people, I've had discussions with people who will say to me, if I will reiterate this, the thing coming back will be, yeah, but they didn't understand anything back then.
They didn't have modern science. They didn't have an understanding of the chemistry behind certain things.
That's it.
Yeah.
And they had to look at this, and they prayed for the rain, and they didn't understand any of it. And I have no argument. That's fine. That's a perception. That's a way to look at it. The only thing you and I do a lot of is we're looking into the myths and legends and trying to dust it off. And what we're uncovering a lot of the times is, at least there was a period a long time ago where we found some very advanced science and very advanced philosophies and very advanced mathematics that were being used. And that says to me, this ain't a bunch of hunter and gatherers that are running around, bopping each other on heads with clubs.
Look, and I think also, I don't claim to be a Luddite. I use technology all the time, and that's part of my day to day. But I've worked in many places and many organisations over the years or have spent time working inside of other people's organisations where there's always some sort of new system or new process which is designed to make things easier, more efficient. It usually has a technological aspect to it.
Yes.
But the amount of times that it just creates more work for people and more hassle and more like red tape and actually makes things longer.
Generates income for other companies, whereas
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that people haven't figured it out. And I used to work with one of my colleagues I used to work with, swore by the filing cabinet and the paper files.
Yep.
And she knew exactly where everything needed to be. Like, she had a system that worked for her. And I remember the moment where those paper files got taken away and she had to work inside the digital system that, it was kind of the end of an era for her, but like she could go back years and years and years and find exactly the information that she needed using that particular system. So I guess, look, there are some great pieces of technology. I use them, you use them, but it's not to say that every innovation is going to be necessarily the best and the most important thing and supersedes the things that have happened in the past.
Well, it's the mantra, isn't it? We've got this mantra of it's modern, it's advanced, that we've got this obsession with growth and everything being different all the time, and oftentimes, as we can see, yes, we're neglecting to look at the waste. Like, we've got massive piles of waste in the ocean, massive piles of waste on land that we don't see. So we got to go to the abattoir and we got to look at it and go, oh wow, that's a result of my
it's there. Like that's the result of what we do. I mean, every time we chuck something in the bin, bro. And so
I guess but that's a great metaphor. So spurring on from your story, there's an enlightenment and a realization that happens at that time, and part of that enlightenment and realization is not, I guess, to be a yay-sayer or a nay-sayer. It's first to analyze what's happening and then look at that in reflection to yourself, is what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think I passed whatever that experience is or was. I know that the person that went through that experience wasn't necessarily ready or didn't necessarily have a framework or a guide in place to guide me through whatever the next stages were.
Sure.
Probably not mature enough, and also just interested in partying and having a good time. And what was revealed to me was, quite.
That's our heaven, isn't it? When we grow up, that's what we're supposed. That's the top of the chain.
It's
above everything.
And so it was connected with the idea of artistry and making music and doing this stuff. But I think what I actually became obsessed with, which was the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle of it all, and that was what became the pinnacle,
the goal,
the goal of what we're going for, and it is.
We missed the truth a little bit.
Well, absolutely, you're missing the point of what this is actually about, and so things from that point. I think it's interesting. It starts with a moment of like great realization and quite profound moment, which then became, in that place as well, started to become quite dark. And by dark, maybe a better way to say it is quite sick.
But this is a legend of the place, and this is as we've mentioned before, it's quite a common occurrence. It's the idea that in the threshold, it's a place where you really do have to be careful what you wish for, because what you wish for will possibly and probably come.
Yeah.
But like anything, there's always like a yin and yang. There's a light and dark side to everything. And if you've just wished for the light and not prepared yourself for the darkness, you're in for a ride.
Yeah, because it's the deal that you do with, like Faust does the deal with
With the devil.
Mephistopheles. Like
Yeah.
There's a contract that's been. I mean, I wasn't intentionally doing any deals. It just happened. But
Yes.
But then but in the same way, I mean, my mission to go back to that place was with an intention. And,
Yes.
And the universe went, all right, here you go.
There you go. Yeah. What are you going to do with it?
What are you going to do with it? Because like things from that point onwards became accelerated in a way that is such a once in a lifetime experience that you kind of go, how the fuck did that happen? Like, how did that happen?
That's a great thing about a threshold. You just mentioned it. So you and we had a chance to go into hyper living. Is the way I look at it. It's that you were able to achieve and do so much in a relatively short space of time that may not have been possible anywhere else. I say may not. This is all, this is all a theory, but this is part of the theories of thresholds and portals and all of these different things, that these magic things can occur. So things can go out of tempo, faster, slower. They can almost work a little bit against the idea of the natural physics we know. Therefore, we can be transformed.
Yeah.
Can be a very transformative in a highly negative or positive way.
Yes.
But what you and I discussed a few times about this whole thing is, if it doesn't kill you, we've had a chance at a do-over a few times, and having that do-over and understanding that some of us need the journey for it to become something real and something solid. And I think the book you held up earlier, that's probably what that art and discipline is all about. It's about, it doesn't happen immediately, manifest immediately. You go through these steps and you become, and you every day you resonate in that place, and you work and you become the being or the resonant thing that you know you should be in it. In all honesty.
Yeah. Look, I mean, in the last year, and this is not necessarily related to that portal, but in a way it kind of is. In this last year, what I've found is another level of practice or discipline to the work that I've always wanted to do, but never necessarily had the grit or the determination or the perseverance to work through and to continue on doing. And I can see a year into that particular practice, something that I've, a couple of things that I put off for a very long time, are manifesting, but it does require work, and it requires effort.
Isn't that a great message to share? The spiritual stuff is not airy fairy. It's not, I just became a whatever. No.
Yeah.
It is conscious work, and conscious meaning you consciously visualize stuff, you consciously are aware of stuff, and it's work like any other. It's a body, it's a muscle, it's a being like anything else. And as you move through that and take it away from just esoteric stuff, I mean, I still consider it esoteric, but put it into something like sport or tennis, whatever it might be, or fishing or music. There's those athletes that are next level. Yeah. And oftentimes you find they have found a resonance and a spiritual place inside of their technique.
Yeah, absolutely.
That takes them well beyond, like your Nathan Clearys and these kind of people that are just that step ahead. Someone might argue and go, they just train real hard. Plenty of people train real hard. But are you training the body, mind, and spirit all at the same time? Are you working on the different aspects and chakras that are involved in what you do? Absolutely. Or are you just mimicking and repeating the same stuff day in, day out? And you're fine with that. And that's fine too. Why the hell not?
And I guess that's where we're going to head to in
next episode
4 of the Prague story, because the light has been switched on and a lot of things start to happen very quickly, and things get crazier and stranger.
Do.
Yeah, they certainly do. So thank you for watching another installment of Hidden in Plain Sight.
Hidden in
Plain Sight.
Hidden in Plain Plains.
Yeah, something like that. See you soon. Thanks.